So hi everybody, Steve Elkin Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today we're going to continue our in-depth dive discussion around the subject of empaths. And, we've done 2 calls on this already. They're up on YouTube if you want to review things. And we've also been talking about it on the Monday calls, the oracle, the self calls recently. So there's some stuff there as well. Again, the difference is that when we are on the oracle, the self calls, we're talking about how these insights matter to the individual, help them to understand how they're operating in the world and their relationships with themselves and with others. So it's all self-application, oracle, the selfie kind of stuff. When we're on these calls, I really want to talk about something that I don't think the average consumer would find all that, well, I don't know. I would imagine they might find it interesting, but I don't know that it's going to add anything to their practical, use of this stuff day by day. But for people in the circle of brilliance, I hope you find this rather fascinating, rather intriguing, because it's like we're adding another layer to the change grid. Although cosmetically, it certainly doesn't need another one. In fact, we're repurposing a layer that already exists, these 16 kind of squares. So last time around, I shared with you guys the quizzes, and I do have that. If you guys don't already have it, I can hand it over to you. I can just chat it over again. So let me know if you want me to do that, and I'll slide them things out of my screen's way and find the document for you. But you guys kind of looked at the summaries and said, no, I can kind of figure out where I would be on this little matrix of these different types of empaths. And I said, well, ultimately, we want to find out, does this overlay on the change grid? I believe the answer is yes. But does it stretch edge to edge, top to bottom, corner to corner, or is it something that is kind of like a zoom in on a certain region of the change grid? So it would only overlay on a particular section. And then from there, we can figure out how that would overlay and what difference that would make. Well, we finished the last call by saying, let's just talk about these 4 extremes for a second and see if these 4 extremes would in fact resonate with the 4 danger zones. And so for each of these 4 possibilities, I said, well, obviously there's some good stuff going on there, but could this particular combination be problematic? And I think we chatted briefly about each one of these, but today what I'd like to do is do a bit of a deeper dive into that. And so without making this any more complicated than it already is, I think there's a difference between looking at this from a empath, from the perspective of being an empath, so from that vantage point, versus starting at the change grid and asking the question about where empathy sits on the change grid. I'll explain that in more detail in just a second, but I just want to let you know if you're going like, well, I don't know if this overlays or not, or blah, blah, we'll get it all sorted out. So let's start with this one that is the furthest out grid. This would be an empath who views themselves as having the master level of strength. So they've mastered empath skills, but they are experiencing intense challenges. So all the worst case scenario sorts of stuff that we talked about last time around is happening for this person. Well, I want you to put yourself for a moment in that situation. You are an empath. And you are an extremely, extremely skilled empath. You pick on everything. So not only, in fact, we haven't talked about this yet, but there's 2 different kinds of empathy. Let me know if you guys have ever heard this before, or if it's something that I conjured. But I actually think it's been talked about a lot, but there's a cognitive kind of empathy and there's an affective kind of empathy. So the cognitive kind of empathy says you have the ability to understand what other people are experiencing. So you have the ability to kind of assess it. I don't know, but somehow or another, it's there, but it tends to be more clinical, matter of fact kind of stuff. It's cognitive stuff. It's happening in your cortex versus affective empathy, which is where you feel what they're feeling. And so again, it's this idea about, are you more of an observer of it, or are you an active participant in whatever their emotional landscape might be? I do think that which of those you are depends on where you are on the change grid overall, but just kind of know that these two things are happening. So if I said to you, I want you to be that master empath who's facing intense challenges, how might you characterize the way that you might be thinking and behaving and et cetera, et cetera? What are your thoughts there? Anyone? Anyone?
Chasing control.
They're chasing control. Is that what you said, David?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that. Chasing
Well,
control.
they're so active. They're busy. They're a master empath, so they're confident in their ability, but they're under intense challenge. So they're responding, reacting, responding, reacting, responding, reacting. And I would think for them, it's all about proving themselves.
Yeah. Yep. And so if we were to look at what what the strengths would be that an empath who is in this outgrid kind of area, and maybe this holds true to a certain degree. Well, it does. It would hold true to a certain degree for all four of these different combos. But I think that the key traits of being outgrid, if we will look at some of the positive side of things, these people are more direct, they're more assertive, they're more decisive, competitive, they're risk takers. This is stuff we already know. They tend to be more independent, even to the point of being more of a, not so much a lone wolf. Lone wolves tend to be quiet and not noticed, but the supreme commander, the king of the hill, those kinds of things could be there. Well, we talked about narcissism before, so at the extreme that would be there as well. What could make them an effective empath? What's the positive part of an empath out there? So if I said, what if we said, let's just call this a driver empath? What would a driver empath bring to the table?
I
Skill.
think what's important there is that secondary energy, uh, amiable. And so I think that that's going to be critical for the person that's out in that quadrant.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so looking at the regular composite change grid, you can see where that vertical line is going. So Tim's absolutely right. We need to make sure that there is that amiable energy in the secondary position. Otherwise, this is going to become a real problem with, how do I put it, overpowering people on a good day, and it could lead to far worse things. So I guess part of the question we're asking is, would you guys want to work with a driven empath? And if so, what do you think they're bringing to you as strengths, and what do you think they're bringing to you as challenges? So I kind of think that on a good day, where Tim's talking about the amiable driven driver, yeah, the amiable driven driver, um, they're good at setting boundaries. So they're probably less prone to getting sucked into emotions and what those emotions are going on. I think we understand, as anyone moves further and further out grid, there is this shedding of everything other than the task at hand. So they want to get it done. And maybe that's the challenge, is they don't bother with any kind of real emotional stuff, the affective kind of part of empathy, because they're so determined to get it done, and they just push, 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 push. Yeah. So thoughts about that?
I'm having difficulty connecting with that place with the extreme challenges and the extreme strength being in the same place that a narcissist would be. So help
Yeah.
me understand how that happens. I
Yeah,
mean,
let's put it at the border of where a narcissist would be, because I do believe narcissism is entirely in the outgrade danger zone.
right. That's I
Uh,
thought you were placing it in the danger zone.
well, we're placing a good deal of it into there. In fact, let me see if I can find this article for you guys. Let's go ahead and talk about this. Oh yeah, in fact, there it is. It talks about cognitive and empathic. I'm going to chat something over to you guys I'd like you to go to. So let's copy this link, chat this over to everyone. Okay, it's a Psychology Today article, so consider the source, but it goes back a couple of years ago. But I have no real question that what's being shared is interesting. But this particular researcher, medical doctor, I don't know what a DFAPA is, but nevertheless, he's wrote an article about dark empaths. And so I'll slide it into the screen so we can look at it together. But I'm wondering what part of this dark empath is in that danger zone. And maybe that, Kathy, will help us figure out when is this a narcissistic issue and when is this really a positive, healthy edge to get close to and hopefully not topple over
Yeah.
into
I
that.
mean, if I can comment here, I mean, I get how somebody can be a dark empath and that they feel and well, they cognitively understand, let's put it that way. They cognitively understand other people's feelings and are able to manipulate them
Yes. Yeah.
cognitively. So that's what makes them a dark empath. And I can see how someone can be a psychopath
Yeah.
or a sociopath or whatever and have that deep, deep understanding and be able to manipulate. What I'm struggling with is their own struggle with the
Yeah.
challenge.
Well, let's take a look at that. What drives this individual? What's going on in their world of actual or perceived challenges that have driven them into this way of living and being? And I think we'll also be able to generalize this to life as well. So, what were some of those extreme challenges that we talked about for that? So, let me go ahead and um, um, rewind just a little bit. The person who is in that state, they would be, I'm trying to find what label we gave it before in that article. Just a second. I'm going to open up the article until I've never committed all this to memory. Da, 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 da. And again, if you guys don't have this, let me know and I'll chat it over to you again. So words opening. Come on.
Hey, while you're pulling that up, for me, to Kathy's question and point, uh, I see the challenge as being the one in that driven driver uh, quadrant, because that to me means that person has not effectively exercised the ability to understand other people's feelings and experiences because they are so far outgrid in that driven driver quadrant.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, this is why we have to figure out, does it stretch all the way to the outside? Is it kind of in the inside? So let's build on what we're sharing. And Kathy, maybe this will help us really resonate or I'm going to say resolve this question. But let's look at what these 15 key challenges were that were in that self-assessment. So I feel emotionally exhausted after spending time in crowded or chaotic environments. I can certainly see how being of that energy, is what I'll use, could put me in the outgrid danger zone. That if I'm feeling emotionally exhausted in crowded or chaotic environments, I can see that one of the things I might want to do is just bottom line it, do these things that the driven driver might do as a way of doing that. So I can kind of see that. Do you guys agree, by the way? I mean, by all means, unmute and chime in.
Yeah,
I think this
isn't it just getting yourself out of that situation that you're going to be taking action on?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so you're essentially overriding your your suffering,
yes,
essentially. You're
exactly.
overriding your suffering by moving into a driven driver and possibly danger zone level.
Right. So let's look at the second one. See, does that apply to the outgrid danger zone? I sometimes lose my sense of self when surrounded by strong personalities.
No.
Well, I don't know about that because what's a narcissist's greatest fear?
Looking bad?
Yeah, and so, but and looking bad to other strong personalities.
Oh, aha.
That's what I'm kind of wondering. It's like maybe that's also true, is they don't want their whole, um, I want to say self-image, but we know it's so distorted. So there's their myth, if you will. They don't want people to recognize that it's all a facade. They don't want anyone to challenge it, scrutinize them, judge them, whatever. And so uh, I don't know that they lose their sense of self as much as their sense of self becomes so threatened that they end up having this high level challenge reaction. Can we make a case for that, or does everyone go like, don't know?
No, I think that's what a narcissist does, and so what I'm seeing here is the trend is just the emotional response is so strong when you're challenged in a whole range of these things, these
Yep.
uh, situations that you're basically going into overdrive and attacking
Yep.
yourself essentially by and attacking others at the same time. You're attacking your own emotional responses to the
There
situation.
you are. Now, I would think that that also resonates with what they're talking about cognitive empathy versus affective empathy. I would imagine that as a person moves further and further away from center, the cognitive empathy starts to fall a bit by the wayside. Maybe the affective empathy is where the focus is. But outgrid, I wondered if a certain point in time, this individual becomes so consumed with self that any empathy they're feeling is more about what's going on within them. So they don't really care about other people. They're not feeling what other people are feeling. They're feeling what they're feeling. And so that really is losing. Yeah, this is interesting. How about the third one? I often find it hard to set personal boundaries, leading to being taken advantage of. For a narcissist, I'd want to restate that a little bit. Anyone want to try their hand at restating that? That would be a little more aligned with someone in the danger zone.
I
So
often find it hard to set personal boundaries, leading to taking advantage of others.
exactly, exactly. They don't believe the rules apply to them in this outgrid danger zone, so they make up rules as they go along. To hell with personal boundaries that they have or anyone else has. They're constantly redefining all that sort of stuff in a power play. And so they're more likely, maybe they're so afraid of being taken advantage of. Or maybe they present themselves as being taken advantage of, even though in fact they're doing they're doing that to others as opposed to it being done to them. Yeah. All right. My sensitivity makes it difficult for me to watch violent or sad news stories. I'm not so sure about that one. Can you guys see a case for that one? Again, they don't have to score a 75 to be in the danger zone. So they don't have to be a 5 on everything. But I would say that the further outgrid they are, maybe it's difficult for them to watch violence directed towards them, or sad news stories that present them in a poor light. But I don't know that they're thinking about the other people who this story that's violent is really describing, or what sad things have occurred for other people. So maybe that's what we're looking at, is that, to Tim's point, as long as that amiable energy is in that tertiary position, at least this person is noticing that others are involved, and it is very difficult for someone who is there on the change grid, so coordinates 10-10, to witness the the violence that's being directed towards someone, or the catastrophe that someone else is experiencing, and not feeling like they can, should, and will do something in order to help that situation. Am I just imagining things, or can you guys kind of see that while there's a very thin line on our diagram between the most positive part of being a driven driver and its most negative expressions, it's still there. And so this positive side of things is someone who's willing to go to the very edge in order to accomplish things that could be beneficial to all involved. What's driving them to do that? And then what happens if they take a little millimeter step into the danger zone? Thoughts about that? Tim, you've unmuted. David?
Yeah, I think that that's what it results in, is that because of that challenge, they may default into that driven driver energy point.
Right, into this dark side or dark
Yeah.
empath, whatever it's
Yeah.
called. Now that we're talking about this, I wonder, is this not the core storyline of the Star Wars movies? The Force, don't go to the dark side. The Force allows you to accomplish anything and everything, miraculous sorts of things, but it has to come from a good, clean heart space or whatever. Don't go to the dark side. But how easy it is for, what are they called? The people that are, what do you become when you're a Jedi? A Jedi. So why are Jedi so vulnerable to being turned to the dark side so quickly, so easily? So I wonder if that's what this is really kind of illustrating.
Why? Because they read the script.
What's that now, Shags?
Why were they converted so easily? They read the script.
They read the script, yeah. Hey, it was the job they were being offered. So.
No, but it's because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolute.
Absolutely right. And is there light without the darkness? It's like, there's might be some metaphysical aspects to it as well. David, did you want to throw something in? Or Kathy, I think I saw you unmuted there for a second.
No.
Nope. Okay. All right. So we can work our way down through this, because I know we really didn't look at this line item by line item. Maybe you guys did after the fact, but mostly we were looking at these four kind of rating bands to help you guys pick whichever one happens to be. But these would be the specific challenges. I tend to internalize criticism or negative feedback deeply. That's definitely a narcissistic pattern. Overwhelming emotions sometimes cause me physical discomfort or symptoms. Not that they would talk about them. Maybe they would if they're looking for sympathy or as a tool for their manipulation. But you just have to believe, from a neurotransmitter perspective, and whatever kind of self-care you're neglecting, that this could certainly result in physical manifestations. I don't think that's exclusive to narcissists, but I would believe it's something that is readily found in narcissistic individuals. I might avoid confrontations to keep the peace, even if it's detrimental to me. I would say that if you're in the outgrid danger zone, how would you restate that line item? So I might avoid confrontations to keep the peace, even if it's detrimental to me. I think it might be something more along the line of, I create confrontations and stir up the peace, particularly if the current situation is detrimental to me. Or I'm doing that because I think it will be useful to me. So again, they don't have to have a 5 on all of these, but there you go. That's obviously a dark side for anyone who is an empath. You have to think about all these, and hopefully you're rating yourself as rarely, never, maybe sometimes on some of these things. Most of you guys did plot from what you were sharing with either moderate challenges, or I forget what the word is. Let's go over here. Moderate challenges or significant challenges, and you rated your strengths by and large as being profound, tipping your toe into master. So you're kind of here slightly outgrid, as a general clustering to begin with. So most of these things you should be feeling, hopefully at the lower end of the scale, but in there, yeah. Okay, so I occasionally absorb others' emotions, making it hard to differentiate them from my own. I would certainly say that someone who is moving out grid, here, they may very well have that as being something they need to be consciously aware of, or would benefit from coaching, consulting around that. We'll apply this to business in a setting. But I think if they're in the danger zone, I don't know so much if they absorb other people's emotions or if instead somehow or another they're making other people absorb the narcissist's emotions, making it hard for them to differentiate themselves from the narcissist. Yep. I often feel, oh, by the way, yeah, let's apply this to business real quick. How many of you have got executives that kind of live on this border? On their good days, they want to go do good things in good ways with good people and have good outcomes and all that. But sometimes, just sometimes, they show you that really they're far more about winning. Getting the recognition, getting the applause, the whatever, having that power, wielding that power, having all the trappings that come along with that, whether that's going to be fame or fortune, notoriety, whatever it happens to be. So have you guys ever had clients like that? You're all staying muted, so
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
Right. And so, we're going to do the same kind of coaching. We're going to say, well, maybe some of these things are the line items that are pushing you into that dark side. Let's see which one of these are in play so we can do something about it. So, for example, if we are working with an executive who avoids confrontations to keep the peace, even if it's detrimental to the organization, do you guys agree? We have something to work with there. Or this idea about absorbing others' emotions, making it hard to differentiate them. This is when an organization might becomes more of a social services agency than a for-profit business. Because we need leaders to be outgrid. We need, one of those key skills of leadership is that we're able to keep people focused on a singular destination. And that needs to be happening out here, but it has to happen from again, amiable tertiary energy. There has to be a loving heart behind it, or it's going to be the dark side. The next one, I often feel drained or fatigued, even when not involved in strenuous activities. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that living this reality, living in this place on the change grid is exhausting in every way you can think of. so that I think kind of would resonate. And again, you guys feel free to unmute and chime in if you're going to add something to it or come it from the other direction. I sometimes become the emotional dump as people offload their problems onto me. Certainly, we deal with plenty of clients, maybe more on the coaching side, relationship coaching, that sort of thing, who have that as their reality. And there's something there that obviously we need to work with. But if we're going to be in the outgrid danger zone, I might want to restate that slightly. So instead of becoming the emotional dump, I think they're more likely to become the emotional dumper.
Well, that's an interesting one, and I'll share a scene from my corporate life, and I'm sure Kathy, with her HR background, can relate to this. But I had just assisted one of our managers with an employee relations issue, and as she was exiting my office and had opened the door, she stopped and turned around and looked at me and said, Tim, you always help us with our employee issues. And matters. She says, we always come to you for things like this. She says, but who do you go to? And it just caused a brain lock for me. And I never forgot that. That's been years ago, but
right, because she's acknowledging that you are, and I think it's true for everyone in the human development industry. We put ourselves out there as a place where people can bring their current situations, whatever those current situations may be.
Yes,
And,
yes. I mean, I once had an employee call me and ask, could she come meet with me? And And I agreed. And as she's hanging up the phone, I'm just thinking, because she didn't give me any details, and I'm thinking, okay, what perhaps happened between her and her supervisor, or perhaps a coworker. Lo and behold, she gets to my office and sits down and closes the door and begins to tell me that her marriage is falling apart. And so, you're right. I mean, you get all sorts of things brought to you,
That's
some
right.
confidential and some not. But yes,
Mhm.
that's a profession that requires the skill that we're talking about.
That's right. It's a profession that requires us to look at the whole person, because as you've just pointed out, their real issue is something that's going on in their personal private life. But we have to treat the whole person. And so if a company hires us and says, we only want you to work with people on business related, bottom line impacting behaviors. And if they bring up anything else, tell them that's not what you've been hired to do. Can we do our work under those kind of constraints?
Right,
I
right.
don't think so. We'd be shutting down the client. They'd stop telling us much of anything. We have to meet people where they are. We've got all these kinds of things that are certainly there. So again, I can feel that this one would be sitting on the border. If they're on the amiable side of things, we've got some work to do, make no doubt about it. But they're still being driven by that amiable heart kind of energy. Where if they're on the dark side, no, now they're dumping their emotions. And how many of you have ever had an executive, a manager, whatever, an individual inside of a corporate setting or any organizational setting who does do an emotional dump on everyone around them? They are the cloud in the sky. They're the real problem in the organization, because this is
Yep.
what they do to everyone around them.
Had one of those.
Yep,
He was the CEO of about 100-person, 120-person company, and he could not control his tension.
no, 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 no. And so again, that would certainly be something that would resonate with narcissistic behaviors, even though they may not know they're a narcissist, or maybe they're not even being a narcissist. They're just being completely self-centered in the moment that they are sharing whatever they happen to be sharing. Or yeah, about themselves, oh, woe is me, the private pity party, nobody understands me, I'm so frustrated, people don't get it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so that can definitely be something that we would encounter in driven driver types that, for whatever reason, are having a very introspective moment, and we need to let them know this is not the time for you to share those insights, those feelings with others, particularly if those fears you have are about the company itself, because now you're contaminating everybody. And this is something I think we talked about on the last call, or maybe it was on the Monday call. We just said that when people are really close to this red circle, or even outside of this red circle, they tend to have little, if any, filters about what they're sharing with other people, particularly upgrid and outgrid. These are talkers. These are talkers. The in-grid might also be talking, but they tend to be more listeners. So they are more likely to reinforce what someone else is saying and accept it as being their truth. So it becomes their truth. Again, now we're talking about that whole meta empath sort of thing, or metamorphic empath kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this, it really is interesting to look at this. But again, I don't know. Whatever. Where does this fit into the whole business side of things? Are we in the business of helping, or are we in the helping business? Next one. I find it difficult to protect myself from negative energies or vibes. That feels very outgrid to me. But it really feels more upgrid. Yeah. Thoughts about that? Negative energies or vibes. Now, if those negative energies are more like the challenges that I'm encountering as I'm trying to go out there and do something, or I've got negative people around me when I feel like, no, we need to stay focused. There's nothing here for anybody to be feeling negative about. See the positive, blah, blah, blah. Or if the energy overall is down, or it's characterized here as just a negative kind of a vibe, I can kind of see where someone in the outgrid danger zone might say, people get over it, get on with it. We got stuff to do, whatever the case may be. So, but protecting themselves from that negative energy, outgrid danger zone would squash it, try their best to just plain squash it. Where other places, I would say, like on this amiable side, I would say, don't get sucked into it. If you're that amiable driven driver, empath, yeah, you may very well need to protect yourself from those negative energies or vibes, lest you get pulled into that danger zone. Okay, this one, next one, I tend to overextend myself in an effort to help or heal others. I would say that's true up to the vertical line, but beyond the vertical line, outside of the red circle, anyone want to modify that in some way? I tend to overextend myself, but what's the motivation? What's the outcome they're looking for?
I think if you're looking out at outside the red line, excuse me, outside the red line, um, there's no willingness to extend. There, it gets cut off.
It gets
Yeah.
cut off. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I would say I tend to overextend myself in an effort to help myself.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. So, Tim, does that resonate with where you were thinking as well? That they're not going
Yes.
to go extend themselves for others,
Yes.
but again, and I go from survival instinct. That's where the fight instinct is triggered. So, overextend myself. And by the way, talking about real clients we work with, are we not also? Does this not also cover perhaps some um, life work balance kind of issues? So I'm overextending myself in my desire to accomplish a particular task, and as a result, other things are being neglected. So I can kind of feel that if they're on the amiable side of things, there's work to be done here because they're vulnerable. Yeah, you can't overextend yourself and actually help or heal others. And what are you doing to yourself in the process? Okay. I occasionally feel isolated or misunderstood due to my heightened sensitivity. Well, if the sensitivity is describing your empathic skills of both varieties, that could certainly make you feel isolated because you probably don't know a lot of people who are your peers in that regard. Misunderstood might hold true because other people are not your peers. They're seeing things in a different way, and that way may be something that you think they should be able to easily overcome, but they don't understand, so they're just stuck in whatever their ignorance or gaps happen to be. And you're particularly feeling it because you do have this heightened sensitivity. On the other hand, if I look at this statement from a narcissistic perspective, a narcissist is highly sensitive, but they're highly sensitive to their own, as we've talked about before, their own myth being maintained, their own sense of self being protected. So they're very sensitive to what might be happening to them, as opposed to sensitive in picking up what's going on with others. And so they may feel isolated and misunderstood because they feel like one of their coping mechanisms is to say, I'm the victim here. Nobody understands me. I'm all alone. I'm so unique. I'm so whatever that, no one can ever relate to where I'm coming from. So I don't expect you to understand. And I don't expect you to really see what it is that I see so clearly, blah, blah, blah. But mostly that sensitivity is about their insecurities. I would think. Okay, I babbled there for a while. Somebody unmute. What do you think? We still describing something that could be workable and something that is simply a narcissistic problem. Given there.
I mean, I think it can just be a narcissistic issue.
Yeah.
To feel isolated or misunderstood because others can't possibly understand my experience. It can be just complete narcissism.
It could definitely be. And I actually have a client right now who is definitely a driven driver, but they're definitely amiable. And I know that and maybe this is common for business owners or executives, they go, I know my employees love me, support me, whatever. I just don't think they get it. I don't think they really see what I see and feel what I feel, or they see and feel something very different that's true for them, but they don't really get why I'm the way that I am, why I'm trying to do all this. So, I mean, I think we hear that a lot from business owners who just don't feel like their employees contain people who all I can think of is get them. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I had that conversation this morning with a client,
Really?
Kathy. No, there's a trip coming up. They're putting in a new IT system. There's a trip coming up where someone can go visit the company. And the two people who lead the team have positioned themselves to go, but it would be much better to have one of the staff go. They're going to be around a lot longer.
Right.
And the two people who lead the team, who are husband and wife, just don't get it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And so that's it. So again, if as long as there's that amiable element in there, we have a workable situation. So yeah, I mean, David, the work could be tough, but nevertheless, there's something to
Right.
work with, as opposed to them being in the danger zone. And now it's all about wanting to appear isolated or misunderstood because it brings you greater sympathy, alliance, allegiance, whatever case may be. And maybe that's related to this one as well. Go ahead, Kathy.
There's a less nefarious kind of explanation for that, or can be, in that the owner of the company is the only one who truly sees the biggest picture.
Yeah.
So that's why it's incumbent upon them to train successors in that conceptual skill, in the big picture of the business, because no one will ever have the perspective that they have as
Well,
long as.
exactly. And, when I've had clients like this or business owners that are like this, I do have times when I say to them, your employees aren't supposed to feel what you feel and see what you see. You want to build this monster company and get advanced and, CEOs of other things, and you want to be filthy rich and on and on. They don't feel that. So maybe your expectation for them to be able to get it is an unrealistic sort of a thing. So we need to focus more on making sure that the employees are getting what they need to get. So do I get them or instead of them getting me, it's an interesting thing. But again, it's a workable, that's a coaching, training, consulting kind of a situation there to be looking at. Okay, two more. I think this one goes hand in glove with the one before. I might neglect my own needs, prioritizing others' well-being over mine. Now, again, that would be true if we are on that amiable little element. But if the person has gone to the dark side, then I'm not surprised that they neglect their own needs, but they most definitely prioritize their needs, their well-being over other people, if they're in the danger zone. And then intense or conflicting emotions can cause confusion or indecision for me. I would say that holds true all the way out there, because I do believe that narcissists do operate from a place of confusion, and I think they will present themselves as having great clarity, but I think they're presenting a facade. And I think that because they tend to be so impulsive, I've always felt that impulsiveness is indecision put in action. Does that description make sense? Indecision put in action. They didn't think it through. They hadn't decided in any reasonable, cognitive sort of way the right way to go. They made an impulsive decision and implemented it. So, yeah, that's it. Sorry, David, you were garbled there. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't that somebody who's up in stress?
Oh, well, again, remember that these four danger zones are physically adjacent to one another.
Right.
And so I would say that what got them into this predicament came from being moved further and further and further out grid. But once they're in the danger zone, I would see plenty of upgrid danger zone sorts of behaviors come into play, and downgrid. Even some of these play the victim. That's an in-grid coping mechanism in the danger zone. So yeah, but I think they got there by moving out grid as opposed to got there by being moved up grid, where there was a question about ability meeting challenge. Now they believe their ability is extremely high, so they're conquering or attacking the greatest challenges they've been exposed to. So okay, anywho, so we've done a very deep dive into this one little section on the change grid, but it's all going to get back to one single question. If that individual had presented themselves as a master empath who wanted to provide you with their empathic insights and wisdom, they're selling you their services as an empath. How many of you want to work with a coach, consultant, guide, counselor who is a driven driver? Anybody? No, silence says, yeah, I'd be happy with that. So everyone quickly unmute and go like, no, I would
No.
not want that. I would not want that. And so I would say to you that while this individual may very well have some strong empathic skills, they are very susceptible to experiencing the challenges that come along with being a strong empath, perhaps more so than anyone else who has a strong ability to get things done. Obviously, this is a worse predicament upgrade. All
And
right,
that's because they're on that thin line.
Yeah, they're on that thin line. And isn't that the whole point of when we're talking about excellence in any kind of an endeavor? That individual who's trying to have that excellent performance, they have to be willing to push themselves right to that line, but they don't want to go over that line. If they are in a sport and they go over the line, they're going to end up injured. Or they're going to injure somebody else, which could even be worse for their career. In business, if they push, they could end up doing things that are illegal, immoral. They could turn every else in their company against them, blah, blah, blah. So this could be a very, very detrimental thing to any kind of a business. If you apply it to politics, the answer becomes obvious. So sooner or later, this dynamic is going to lead to demise. So, all right. Anyway, I've got that fine line between how hard we want someone to fight and how hard someone is willing to fight, to be that leader, to put themselves out there, to take that risk. Knowing that boundary, knowing that edge is absolutely critical, because it's very easy to end up getting pushed to the other side.
I
Okay,
think
graphically,
particularly when there's a challenge of outcome versus the relationships.
well, true. So I'll let you tell us, why do you think it's outcome versus relationships? Tell us
You know,
more about that.
depending upon what the leader is challenged with,
Mhm.
in terms of the pressure to produce, to get results, to have a positive impact on the stock price,
Yes,
to look at cutting costs, all of those factors can apply the right amount of pressure on a leader and cause them to cross that thin line.
that's right. And really, crossing the thin line, I think, is an act of abandoning the humanity part of it, right? You've lost your amiable contribution.
Right.
And so the moment you've said, I am willing to push so hard to achieving a particular outcome that I don't care how it really affects anybody else other than me. I'm willing to sacrifice all of these people in order to achieve a particular outcome. I mean, apply that even to, war. So, the people that are making these decisions are playing with little toy soldiers on a gigantic playing board. They don't realize these are real people who are going to lose lives, and kids are going to lose parents, and, on and on. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And again, that's a narcissistic tendency. as well, to be focused on the outcome. And ultimately, you're focusing that outcome because of what you think you're going to enjoy as a result of being the one who accomplished whatever that particular outcome happens to be. Yep. Okay. So Kathy, I guess I'm going to go all the way back to how we sort of started working our way down this list of what those challenges happen to be. Did that help in any way? Does it overlay now for you a bit better, or tell me?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that what we did though is we manipulated the challenges. We manipulated the wording of the challenges to enable that to reflect a kind of narcissism, and I would say that the challenges as they are written can reflect dangers, the other danger zones.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
do very
so
much agree. Yeah.
that's what we did, was we found a way to manipulate the wording of those to reflect the outgrid danger zone more so than anything else.
Yeah, so let's take a look then at what would happen. But let's go downgrid and see what's going on down there. So to be down there, you would say that you are a master empath with minimal challenges. And so you would have rated, well, to rate under 15, I don't think you can rate under 15. You can't. 15 to 30, minimal challenges. You experience very few of the typical challenges faced by empaths, naturally developed or actively cultivated protective mechanisms, shield you from the pitfalls, stay vigilant, blah, blah, blah. And so it would be interesting to say, well, what would someone who views themselves as being a master empath, let me go back to this one, a master empath with minimal challenges. When we overlay this on the change grid, if we're saying it really does stretch corner to corner, top to bottom, we know the majority of this region is going to be in the danger zone, and the saving grace on that line is going to be having an expressive tertiary energy. So still talking, still being engaged, involved, whatever. And so these people would say, well, no, I know exactly how to pick up on other people's thoughts and feelings. And I understand exactly what they're thinking and feeling. And I know exactly how to blah, blah, blah. I'm a master empath. And no, I'm never exhausted when I'm in a crowd. I don't let people dump on me emotionally. I don't feel isolated. I take care of me first. They're basically going to like, no, none of these things are really of any real significant value for me. Now, mind you, they could have given themselves up to a score of 2 for every one of these. So, and still ended up there. But, let's kind of look at that combination. We'll go to the real core question. If you were looking for someone to provide you with coaching, counseling, guidance, training, whatever, and this person came along to you and said, I'm a master empath and I experience little, if any, real challenge in doing it. Is that somebody you think you want to work with? Or what do you think the dark side is of someone who is perhaps too analytical?
Take a nap with.
They can nap. There you go.
Yeah, the challenge, I mean, the dark side there is that they just don't care. There's just no, they're a master empath, but they have very little motivation to actually help.
Right. And so let me read for you from, this is another part of the article that I haven't finished polishing up to share with you guys. I should do that anyway. But I described an analytical empath, and I said their key traits are they're precise, systematic, logical, detail-oriented, data-driven, all that's true. As an empath, their strengths would be an analytical empath is meticulous in understanding the emotional data they pick up, making them great at discerning nuances in feelings. They can process and analyze their empathic insights systematically. Now, again, that feels true, maybe down to that danger zone border, right down to there. But these are the challenges. They might overthink or overanalyze emotions, leading to emotional paralysis. Their need for logic might conflict with the intuitive nature of empathy. I don't think that's describing the danger part of things dangerously enough. In fact, Kathy, what you just shared is absolutely spot on for what's here. They don't, who else said they don't care? Um, they just really aren't involved. They aren't invested. We even look at our layers here. They're in downgrade or hypo awareness. Maybe, just maybe, a little bit of very far downgrade awareness. This is not someone who's engaged. They're not actively doing much of anything. And so that would seem to me to mean this empath is going to be able to describe me perhaps very accurately, but I don't think much beyond description is going to happen. You guys agree, disagree?
Yeah, yeah, I that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a part of me that, and I'm just going to sound crazy. There's a part of me that says somebody at that level could actually even be a sadist.
Oh, tell us more about that. I think you're right. Tell us more.
I mean, the image that came to mind, because I work intuitively a lot. The image that came to my mind as we were talking was, you know, the doctors in the Nazi camps.
Ah, mm-hmm.
The people who understood um, what other people would feeling and experiencing, and were treating it as a set of statistics and a system
Yep.
of annihilation.
And
I mean,
so because
that's
they're statists, they
that's
would be,
very extreme, but that's what came to
well, but
mind.
that's what this spot is, that we are talking the extreme. So you're spot on, spot on. Um, yeah, I guess what I'm thinking about here is there's no amiable element here either. In the downgrade, there'd be an amiable thing, maybe because I'd be looking for people's reactions, responses to things. Yeah, this does feel like a very um, evil laboratory kind of a place for someone could be. And if the lab is run by someone who's in the upgrade danger zone, this is really a scary combination of energies. Yeah. Yep. Particularly since down here you got someone cognitive empathy. They know what people are feeling so they can structurally manipulate it to get whatever this person wants. Ugh, yeah, mad scientists, just plain mad. All right. Well, that takes us to the top of the hour. Obviously, it would be interesting to visit these other two to see.
Sorry to bring you to such a negative place at the top of the hour.
Yeah, there it is. Such a negative place. I'll leave you here. But I mean, look, it really is interesting. When I started talking about this layer, and I was reading the section of the article from long ago, I was just thinking, like, well, maybe an empath overlays on the entire change grid. And depending on the situation you as an empath are experiencing, you're going to have a different energy around that particular situation. And then I thought, yeah, but maybe each of these different empath qualities, and the other two we just mentioned, there's a cognitive empathy and there's an affective empathy. Maybe we could do another comparison to see, all right, how would that map out onto all this? So that energy overall of the type of empath you are can go all over the change grid, but also occupies a certain space on that grand change grid of life, the big one. And so, does that make you an effective and efficient, an elegant empath, or simply someone who isn't really should be in the line of work at all? I don't want to work with an empath that's down here, and I don't want to work with an empath that's out there. When I come to these two,
See, I think it's important and helpful to look at this from the lens of relationship with others, in addition to at that individual level.
yeah, all right, tell us.
So perhaps the next time we talk about this, we could explore that in terms of the impact and effects upon teams, diverse teams of people.
Yes.
And looking at that leader in terms of, are they an empathic in relation to how they manage those teams of people,
Mhm.
their ability to use emotional intelligence to be effective as a leader.
Right,
Because
right.
it's one thing to look at them as an individual and their characteristics, but it's another thing when we began to look at how they influence and impact the environment.
I would agree completely. And, going back to this little list of 15 things, I go, well, I don't really know that I would want to work with an empath who's down here, because I think that experiencing some of this stuff makes you're someone who's currently living life. You're out there being exposed to others, finding yourself in situations where you need to be able to really work with these kinds of situations. I don't want someone who's not out there living, participating, etc. And Tim, I love the thought you chatted over to everyone. So, are there any benefits to being narcissistic? And you're right, when it comes to subclinical, keep in mind that anyone who's going to put themselves this far out grid, who's going to run an organization, run for office, whatever, even though they may be focused on how this is going to help support, impact others, they may still feel like this is their mission. This is their purpose. And even saying such things, it gives us a glimmer into some narcissistic sorts of feelings. So I guess that's what they're describing as subclinical narcissism. So yeah, mental toughness for sure, a heightened sense of self-worth. Yep, because you've earned it. That's the whole thing. I got to believe if you are an Olympic athlete in the medal capabilities, I would imagine you do have a rather strong self-impression, very strong self-esteem. And maybe, just maybe, you're one of the things your coach reminds you of all the time is not to get too big for your britches, or not to believe your own PR. Don't overestimate your own abilities or underestimate the abilities of others. So there's a lot of counseling that's probably going on. Yep.
Who was it? Caesar, who had saying, "Remember, you're only a man."
Right. Right. Yep. So there's lessons throughout history to kind of illustrate this point, this moment on the change grid, and what awaits someone who falls into the danger zone.
Yeah.
So it's all tension management. Life is tension
Yeah.
management. All righty. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We will chat
Thank
again
you.
soon. Take care. Have a wonderful
Have a good day, everybody.
Good. Kathy,
Bye.
have a great vacation. Have a great
Take
vacation.
care.
All right. Bye, everyone.